The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 40. To the little prince. Tang Fan was quiet for a long while and then said, "You wanted to avenge Lady Ji, but why did you kill Han Zhao?" Yuan Liang sighed. "Since I am serving by the prince's side, no matter what I did, I would end up implicating him as well, so I couldn't act unwittingly. Even if I loathed Consort Wan to the core, I had to bear with it. Then one day, her elder maid, Fu Ru, came looking for me and asked if I wanted to take revenge for Lady Ji. I said yes, and then she said that she would persuade Consort Wan to send some soup over to the crowned prince. Whatever song and dance I made up when the time came would be entirely up to me." "Wait." Tang Fan interrupted. "Why did Fu Ru betray her? And if she was angry at her, why didn't she just poison her? She served at her side, it would have been simple." The other shook his head. "I don't know. She's a strange person. Before the birth, she was the maid that the consort had ordered to give Sister Ji the abortion medicine. She was supposed to have made someone beat her with a club because if she was beaten to death, His Highness naturally wouldn't have survived, either. Yet she only made Sister Ji take the drug, and the bowl was only half full, which allowed him to survive by luck. Speaking of, she had been kind to him, which is why I believed her. The consort often hits and berates her people. Fu Ru couldn't escape that even by being an elder maid the frequency of it was just less compared with others. Maybe she held a grudge but was too afraid to do it herself for the sake of her own life, so she needed my help to use such a roundabout technique." Tang Fan gave a hum and then, "Go on, then." "I thought that this was a good opportunity, but the prince couldn't be involved. The one dying would best be someone around him, and they needed to be of status, else it wouldn't be enough to attract His Majesty's attention. As that was so, the only candidates remaining were the prince's teachers and Han Zhao. There are a lot of teachers that give him lessons. They're headed by a great scholar of the Hall of Literary Brilliance, followed by the educators, junior educators, and other men of the Court of Education. Every day, they alternated in teaching him, and he would usually gift them food as a form of respect. However, that food was all prepared and sent from the kitchens, which were irrelevant to Consort Wan. If I wanted to pick an exact date, Han Zhao alone stayed with the prince on the daily, and because of their good relationship, they shared food a lot. Whenever the Empress Dowager sends them food, she typically sends 2 portions. That's why I ended up picking Han Zhao. Poison is too crude though, and easy to detect. My death is unimportant, but His Highness couldn't be dragged down. Whenever I took Han Zhao into the palace, he would usually bring up the bad things his mother had done to his adopted brother. Han Zhao was kind-hearted and respected him, and felt that his mother was behaving poorly yet having no power to dissuade her. He was quite distressed about it. Once I became familiar with him, he told me everything. After hearing enough, I knew that unless Han Hui was a saint, there was no way he wouldn't hold resentment against his adopted mother, so I came up to him and told him that if Han Zhao died, the second branch would be cut off. He would then be the sole successor and break his mother's heart, satiating his hatred that way. He was horribly frightened at first, not seeing Han Zhao off for a few days after. However, I wasn't worried since he hadn't directly rebuked me at the time. That meant that he had the idea deep in his heart. I took a step back, since even if he refused, I still had another way. As expected, after some time, he sought me out to agree to my previous proposal. What happened afterwards, you already know. Having spoken so much, his face got even harder to look at. The sound of the breaths coming out of his throat was very hard on the ears, like broken bellows that were doing all they could to suck in air. You had to kill someone completely innocent in order to avenge Lady Ji. Tang Fan couldn't help but rage. Han Zhao had nothing to do with what's happened in the past, so what was the use of killing him? Isn't that just benefiting the enemy and not your kin? Yuan Liang smiled miserably, with tears. I know he was innocent, but this was forced from lack of other choice. I had been born a crippled and purposeless man, then was poisoned twice when I tested for it on behalf of Sister G. By miracle, I didn't die back then, but my health was ruined. The imperial physician said that even if I took meticulous care of myself, I would only last a few years. If I couldn't witness Lady Wan falling on hard times before my death, what face would I have to see Sister G when I got to the 9 Springs? I can't kill that woman myself, so I had to choose this indirect method. As soon as Han Zhao died, she was certain to be suspected for it, and everyone would think that she was going after His Highness. Conspiring to kill the heir apparent is a huge crime, and her deposition would be inevitable. She's made numerous enemies in the palace. There's so many people that want her dead. If she's no longer in the position of consort or the emperor's favorite, I won't even need to do anything. Wang Ji, who hadn't said anything this whole time, couldn't help but speak up in a cold voice at that point. That's indeed a serious crime. If you had tried your plan out in the great ancestor's era or in even the late emperor's court, she really might have been deposed like you said, but your error is in underestimating the weight she has in His Majesty's mind. He deposed his empress for her sake, and even his own mother can't speak out against her. I'm afraid that the weight the prince has in his mind isn't as heavy as you imagine it to be. But it's not that light, either, is it? Yuan Liang looked deeply weary. I heard that after Han Zhao's death, His Majesty had a big row with her. Is that not right? Wang Ji said nothing. The man laughed a bit. If you won't say, then it's probably true. A lot of things had to be gambled on, really. When we helped hide the crowned prince, that was a gamble. When his identity was revealed later, we didn't know how if His Majesty would treat him, so that was also a gamble. Now, I'm simply using my life to take a gamble. If I manage to pull Lady Wan off her horse, then His Highness' future will be smooth sailing from then on, and he'll never need to worry about assassination again. What a shame that my gamble did not pay. Ah, never mind. As long as you don't implicate him. I was the one who staked my life, so it's me who has to die. Han Zhao was innocent, so my death can be considered an equal exchange of life. His Highness is a good person and will be a wise ruler, too bad I will never see that day. Wang Ji sneered. Are you not afraid that I'll unveil everything you've said before Consort Wan? Yuan Liang shook his head. I know you won't, else you wouldn't have come to question me ahead of time. Thank you, Eunuch Wang. I had always looked down on you because you were one of her people, but now I can see that you still have virtue in your heart. Bah! You murdered Han Zhao, so don't you lecture me about virtue. Besides, I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing it for the crowned prince. The other man's expression was murky. Yes, that's why I'll repay him with my life now. Your protection of His Highness is something I can't pay back, though. Noticing that his voice was getting fainter and fainter, blood spilling out of the corners of his mouth, Tang Fan stepped forward, grabbed him and hefted him up. What about Furu? Do you know what her history is? Did she want to implicate Consort Wan solely because she was unhappy with her? Yuan Liang shook his head, looking increasingly dazed. His eyes also gradually lost focus. Due to the pain, his face twisted up horrifically, and then he breathed no more after a final groan. Tang Fan let him go, setting him back down on the bed. The man had been beyond heinous. To avenge Lady Ji and frame Consort Wan, he didn't hesitate to drag the innocent Han Zhao down into the fray, then ultimately testified that all he had done was a complete waste. Consort Wan was foreordained to shirk all responsibility, and Han Zhao had died for no reason. Yet, he had also been quite piteous. Everything he had done was not for himself nor for the pursuit of fame, wealth, or lust, but to repay the kindness Lady Ji had given him. How many people had received the grace of others in their lives, and how many of them would remember it? Yuan Liang had not only remembered his but securely engraved it into his heart, not sparing to wager his own life for it. Yuan Liang died of a sudden illness, where it was too late to even call for a doctor, Wang Ji said. What a shame. Tang Fan's heart jumped, immediately understanding what he meant. What about Furu? Wang Ji was expressionless. She was upset because the consort had insulted her, so she urged her to send soup to the crown prince, then used Han Zhao's death to frame her. That basically eradicated Yuan Liang's role in this. Tang Fan shook his head. That won't do. There's too many holes in it. Don't forget about Han Hui. Furu is inside the palace with the consort, so how would she ever be able to contact him? Yuan Liang's part has to be put in the middle. Wang Ji thought for a bit, then clapped his hands together. Let's do it like this, then. After Furu got berated by the consort on the regular, she held a grudge but didn't dare to retaliate herself. Yuan Liang was Furu's lover, and after hearing her complaint, he happened to know that Han Hui had the mind to kill his brother, so he came up with this plan. First, he would have Furu urge the consort to send soup, then he would have Han Hui put Han Zhao's death into motion ahead of time. The three conspired to stage such a play for the purpose of framing the consort. He had taken great pains to distance the suspicions from the crown prince. Tang Fan was quiet for a bit. If you explain it like that, will His Majesty and the consort believe you? Why wouldn't they? Wang Ji countered. Now that Yuan Liang is dead, he can't give any testimony. The truth that Furu and Han Hui were linked is concrete, and it won't raise any waves with that, no matter how much they deny it. I may as well be honest with you, His Majesty had never wanted this to end up into any huge punishment. In his mind, now that the prince is older, he's the son he finally managed to get. Even if he's not as important to him as Consort Wang, he still has his function. He doesn't want blame for this on the crown prince's head. The only variable here is the consort. However, as long as there's no proof, she can't use this as an excuse despite any grudges she has towards the crown prince. He paused, then said with regret, if only I had just arrested Junior Lady Zhou and been done with it. Why is this so endlessly troublesome? I shouldn't have listened to your random ravings, Tang Fan. I wanted to get into Crown Prince's good graces, but the end result of that is that I can't get off the boat I've gotten on and can only forge ahead to parts unknown. I had been one of the consort's people, yet now I'm helping you lot deceive her. If she learns of it, my end won't be any better than Yuan Liang's. Tang Fan was similarly disquieted by Yuan Liang's incident and had to sourly console him. Not necessarily. I've been getting the general sense that Furu's aim in all of this isn't so simple. Someone harboring a grudge against the consort would be well aware that since both sides were going to die, they could just get in close to her and stab her with a knife. Why wind around in a big circle to set her up? If you can dig up anything on Furu, you might be able to fully get rid of any suspicion against the prince. Wang Ji huffed coldly. You're thinking too simply. Yuan Liang having been one of the crown prince's people is enough. No matter what other causes or motives there are, the consort's suspicions towards him will never be erased. You need a reason to like someone, so don't you also need a reason to hate someone? Tang Fan couldn't comprehend her strong fear of the crown prince, but Wang Ji had clearly grasped the idea better than him. They really didn't say much more than that. Not long after Yuan Liang's death, Wang Ji left the East Palace to head for the Western Depot and interrogate Furu. Tang Fan looked at the corpse quietly for a good minute, then went out, saying his goodbyes to the crown prince. As it happened, the boy didn't need to study today. He sat by himself inside the hall, looking quite dazed. After seeing Tang Fan come in, he dismissed the nearby attendants. Prefect Tang, Attendant Yuan is. Tang Fan cupped his hands. His serious illness couldn't be treated and he just now passed. This was his acquiescence to Wang Ji's proposal. The prince's eyes quickly turned red. Please quell your grief, your highness. He looked calm on the surface, but his mind was also unraveling. According to his own work principles, everything should be dealt with impartially. Why Yuan Liang had died and how everything had gone from start to finish, should have been reported in its entirety to his superiors, then be handled in accordance to national law, How could the innocent Han Zhao, who had been senselessly killed, be at rest with all this cover-up? But, he also knew that if Consort Wan learned of Yuan Liang's motive of avenging Lady Ji, she would definitely think that the crowned prince was entirely surrounded by such people, and also that he had always held a grudge against her for the death of his birth mother. Did anyone have a good enough heart to keep someone around that forever hated them, let alone Consort Wan? Her simply not prompting the emperor to depose the crowned prince would be fine by itself. That was why Tang Fan's mental principle of impartial handling would instead be equivalent to giving Consort Wan an excuse to purge the harem. Pursuing fairness for certain things would only kill even more people. Under these circumstances, what should he elect to do? That he was aware of this concept was exactly why he was so conflicted. In a world such as this, wanting to be an incorruptible, selfless official that enforced the law impartially, was very difficult. He heard the prince speak. I know, that everything he had done was for my mother. How much do you know, Your Highness? I know that Xiao Zhao's death was wrongful and that it had nothing to do with Consort Wan. Attendant Yuan refused to tell me anything, but I guessed it anyway. He also thought that I had already forgotten my mother's death, but I haven't. I know that Consort Wan had something to do with it. I just don't want revenge. He sniffed, choking up. I know that if I take revenge, someone will die, and I don't want them to. Why do I have to take revenge? What good would it do anyone? My mother in heavens definitely would have wanted Attendant Yuan to live well. She wouldn't have wanted him to kill Xiao Zhao for her. Tang Fan sighed. From the moment you were born, you were destined to have an extraordinary future. Everyone has placed great expectations onto you and also hopes that you will become a wise ruler later on, so they want to use their own lives to pave the way before you. That way, when you walk it, it won't be too difficult for you. But human lives shouldn't be exchanged for that, right? The prince asked, tearful. Tang Fan was silent for a moment, then nodded. You're right. The ways of the world had never been complex, only human hearts were. However, since Attendant Yuan has already given his life so you won't be implicated, please don't disappoint his wishes. This matter ends here. No matter who asks you, you have to say that he died of sudden illness. Upon coming out of the East Palace, Tang Fan felt physically and mentally exhausted, as if he had gone in and on and out and around the palace literally the entire day. Processing Yuan Liang's corpse was easy. The East Palace had always been tight-lipped and loyal, so his real cause of death was known only to the crowned prince, Tang Fan, and Wang Ji. Provided that the prince didn't divulge anything, only a serious illness would get reported to the outside world and then the body would be sent out of the palace for burial. However, Tang Fan hadn't foreseen that on the very next day, he would be getting the news that Furu was dead. End chapter. The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 41. A bona fide glutton. Both Han Hui and Furu were being detained in the Western Depot, one the actual murderer and the other an accomplice. Once Wang Ji's words from yesterday were added onto the current situation, Tang Fan was immediately forced to make a connection. Wang Ji had killed her. Among those involved in this case, Han Hui was the murderer, La Mei was an accessory, and Yuan Liang with Furu were accomplices. La Mei had helped Han Hui with hiding the needle, but she had only willingly done so because she was carrying his child. She didn't know any other details. Han Hui had gotten Yuan Liang's help, but he had no idea why the man had wanted to help him. Only Furu knew that Yuan Liang was resentful and wanted to aid him to take revenge on behalf of Lady Ji. She was the one that sought him out in the first place and might have even been the one who thought up the idea for the whole affair. The part she played was huge. Apart from Tang Fan, Wang Ji, and the crowned prince, she alone had a clear understanding of Yuan Liang's motive and actions. If she had confessed that Yuan Liang wanted revenge, Consort Wan was certain to place blame on the crowned prince's head. Now that Furu was dead, she could tell nothing. In Wang Ji's view, this was the safest way. However, Tang Fan could never find Wang Zhi during the several times he went to the Western Depot, and whether he had killed the maid was something he couldn't ask just anyone. He suspected that Wang Zhi was deliberately avoiding him, but there was nothing he could do about that. Without Wang Zhi, he couldn't even go past the palace gate, so he naturally had no idea what actually went down on the emperor and consort Wan's end, nor whether the crowned prince would get drawn in, nor how the case ultimately concluded. It wasn't until half a month later that Wang Zhi had someone invite him to the Western Depot, after which he told him that the case had been finalized. How was it finalized, then? He asked. Fu Ru was resentful towards getting rebuked by the consort on the daily, but was also too afraid to retaliate herself. Wang Zhi answered. Yuan Liang was her lover, and after hearing her complain as well as Han Hui's coincidental desire to kill his brother, he came up with this plan. Fu Ru made the consort deliver soup, then Han Hui set to task beforehand. All three of them conspired to frame consort Wan. As a result, after Han Hui's confession, she got scared and killed herself in prison. That was pretty much identical to what he had said to him before. Tang Fan didn't beat around the bush, asking him head on, was her death because of you? Do you think it was? Wang Zhi countered. Tang Fan was silent. Silence equaled unvoiced agreement. There was no one else attending in the room where they were. As the two remained silent, the atmosphere momentarily stagnated. A short while passed before Wang Zhi spoke mildly. You're the only other person that's ever known the entirety of this case, so I may as well tell you that it had nothing to do with me. He laughed coldly. I did have the thought to silence her, but I didn't expect that she would be a step quicker at it than me. She really was kind of suspicious. During her interrogation, she was very stiff-lipped. At first, she was dead set on claiming that she had acted alone, but also claimed that Yuan Liang had sought her out because of Lady Ji's death and she couldn't resist helping him. Prior to Yuan Liang's death though, he had made it clear that she was the one who approached him first. Moreover, she's been at the consort's side for over 10 years. If she wanted to help Yuan Liang, why just now when Lady Ji had been already dead for many years? That's why I don't think he had been lying to us. Tang Fan nodded. He had a will to die then. There would have been no need for him to lie. Seeing that he believed him, Wang Zhi looked a bit better. When she got tortured, she started babbling again, saying that she was acting under the Son of Heaven's instruction. Simply absurd. I had wanted to pick at every spot of oddity about her and then silence her so that the consort wouldn't be given a poor explanation, but the woman somehow ended up getting a copper piece off of the oil lamp on the wall, then cut her own neck open and died. Having believed that he had killed her, Tang Fan was surprised that this was the truth. He couldn't help but furrow his brows. She had been detained in the prison and the Western Depot is heavily guarded. How did she find the tool and chance to kill herself? Wang Zhi sneered. That illustrates that there's a problem in the Western Depot itself. She must have had other people behind her. What's their purpose in doing this, then? Tang Fan pondered. To incite conflict between the crowned prince and the consort. That was a possibility. The prince was young right now, but he was gradually turning into a semblance of a wise ruler, diligent in studies, never speaking carelessly, respectful towards his teachers and benevolent towards his underlings. All those various high-quality characteristics seemed to make people see hope for the future, a group of fiercely loyal people assembling around him. Mediocre officials were everywhere in the court, but no matter how dark and dangerous the world was, there would always be people who yearned for the light and strove hard to make it appear again. Like Tang Fan, for instance. Even though he wasn't definitively in the crowned prince's party, did his heart not vaguely waver towards defending the boy? It was for precisely that reason that Consort Wan was stirred into secret worry and resentment. If you're winning over people's hearts like this now, will I still have anywhere to stand when you become emperor? If someone had the mind to provoke conflict, starting from there would thus be quite practical. Wang Zhi fumed with gritted teeth. I had to go humbly apologize to Consort Wan over this, suffer a real bout of scolding, then go wash the Western Depot clean again. Despite that, I only caught some small fry. I couldn't even dig out that backstage traitor at all. That just goes to show how deeply hidden he is. He better not let me catch him, or I'll use every sort of torture the Western Depot has on him. His words steamed with murderous intent. Even sitting opposite him, Tang Fan could feel his desire to kill hitting him in the face. It was practically turning tangible. Wang Zhi had previously planned for this very well, but now things turned out different. For Furu to be able to kill herself in a place like the Western Depot clearly meant that there was an issue somewhere in its departments, but the other party's scheming was so airtight, no one could find anything out. How could Wang Zhi not be furious? It was fortunate that he had the emperor and consort's trust and favor right now, meaning he only got scolded over this. This event alone would have been enough to bring his political life to an end, otherwise. What about Han Hui, then? Tang Fan asked. What about him? Wang Zhi was displeased. He doesn't know anything about any of this. All he heard was Yuan Liang's prompt the murder, and then he did what he was supposed to do. He already confessed, so the date where he'll be handed over to the Ministry of Justice is fixed. He won't be the Western Depot's problem after that. Tang Fan nodded. Han Hui's execution would be able to console Han Zhao's spirit in the heavens. Recalling that, he couldn't help but sigh for the boy. Han Fang and Lady Lin had a son in their middle ages, so Han Zhao had been spoiled. He didn't become a hedonist like Zheng Chen because of his upbringing, but instead filially loved his parents and respected his older brother, even becoming sullen at witnessing Lady Lin's treatment of said brother. He also gave his boy servant a silly name, which showed what a lovable child he had been. Tang Fan had never personally met him, but from Han Fang and Lady Lin's grief, as well as the Crown Prince's regretful sorrow, he could see that Han Zhao had been loved. It was such a shame that a good child like that had ended up getting killed by his beloved brother, who was overtaken by a demon of the heart. On top of that, if Lady Lin hadn't treated Han Hui harshly, thus causing Han Zhao to be resentful, the latter wouldn't have voiced his complaints to Yuan Liang, who would then not have learned of the Han family's situation, finding no opportunity nor circumstances to set to task thereupon. As was said, everything in existence inexorably had causes, as well as consequences. Wang Zhi was frustrated from trying to find the mole in the Western Depot, which was quite deeply involved in matters with massive implications. Tang Fan didn't ask more on it, but the other man questioned him of his own volition. Do you think that this might have something to do with the Jingtai Emperor? Tang Fan suffered a bad start. This matter is of dire importance. You can't just make random guesses, he answered immediately. We're the only two people here. Why can't I guess a couple things in private? Wang Zhi said, annoyed. That Jingtai was the current son of Heaven's uncle. This was a bit of controversy known to all in the land. During Yingzong's reign, because he trusted his favored eunuch Wang Zhen about the personal campaign on the Warais, the Tumu stronghold crisis thus came to be. Half of the major officials in court had followed him, never to return again. The capital's regiments were entirely wiped out, and the Warais were about to come and invade the capital. At that point in time, the then crowned prince, who was the emperor now, was only 2 years old. He obviously couldn't have presided over the government, especially not at such a time of crisis. Yu Qian and the rest were commanded forward in the face of death, ordered so by Yingzong's little brother, Jingtai, who had taken over the governing of the country. The Warais were pushed back, hence putting the citizens' minds at ease and sparing the great Ming from total calamity. In that juncture, Yingzong had been released by the Warais. Jingtai was already crowned the emperor, so he was naturally unwilling to concede his position. Even if he was willing, their brotherly relationship would never be the same as it was before, because his big brother would definitely have apprehensions towards him from there on. For that reason, Jingtai simply placed his brother under house arrest, then ruled on for 7 years. However, when he became gravely ill, another palace rebellion broke out. Some officials rescued Yingzong out of his palace of exile, put him in the throne again, then placed Jingtai under house arrest. The resentment between the brothers ended here as within no more than a month, Jingtai was dead. The late emperor loathed him for seizing his throne, even stripping him of his imperial name and giving him a shameful posthumous title. It was only after the current emperor's ascent that his uncle regained his reputation. Judging from that, the current emperor really wasn't that bad of a person, with that magnanimous heart of his. It was just that he didn't care about governance, which led to the court currently being such a mess. With that said, Wang Zhi bringing up this bit of the past was clearly not to make Tang Fan chase after it to supplement the present, but rather because he wanted to point out the enmity between the late emperor and Jingtai. Jingtai had been enthroned for 7 years, so there was bound to be a couple of people loyal to him in that time. They got beheaded by Yingzong one by one after his reinstatement. Those that were fortunate enough not to die, they tucked their tails between their legs and behaved in a low-key way, having hardly any sense of existence. Yet, it was hard to ensure that among these people that had quietly endured all this time, none of them had used Furu to intentionally provoke disquiet. This could not only have instigated strife between Consort Wan and the crowned prince, but could have also made the emperor have doubts towards her, causing chaos in the dynasty. Wang Zhi's conjecture was quite within reason. Was there anything suspicious in Furu's residence? Tang Fan asked. What did the consort have to say? We've already turned the place upside down along with the consort's palace but didn't find anything at all. Furu's possessions were so clean, there was nothing dubious about them whatsoever. They were just various goods and commodities that the consort had bestowed to her over the years. Wait, Tang Fan interrupted. She didn't have any relatives outside of the palace, then. She didn't entrust anyone with bringing all that wealth out to her family. That's a good point you've raised. Talking to smart people is always a delight. Wang Zhi huffed happily. No, there was nothing like that in the least. Everything rewarded to her over the years is still there. As for the wealth, that's impossible to calculate exactly, but it seems to be overwhelmingly untouched. I checked, and she has no family outside the palace. Her parents died when she was young. After which she was raised to adulthood in her uncle's family. Some years after she entered the palace, her uncle's home burned away to nothing because of a fire in the capital and the whole family moved away. Their location after that is unknown. After hearing all that, Tang Fan had nothing to say. The event with her uncle's family seemed concerning when he first heard it, but in reality, such things were common in this era. It couldn't be used as evidence. Feng Qingzi of the Marquis Wuan case, for example, had her family banished and scattered due to being implicated in a rebellion, and the people that had lived in the vicinity of their house almost all moved away because of a subsequent neighboring fire, causing Tang Fan a bit of difficulty when they investigated it. Furu had no one outside the palace, and therefore had no place to send her wealth to, meaning it all stayed inside. Maybe she had thought that when she came of age, she might be let out to marry, but the consort came to rely heavily on her, making her unable to leave for even a moment. If this case hadn't happened, she might have become a lady-in-waiting later due to her continuous stay in the palace. The consort was livid after learning about this, Wang Zhi said. She really hadn't known that Furu would do such a thing, so she told me I had to get to the bottom of it. Even if she had said that, how was he supposed to investigate it? No matter how all-encompassing the Western Depot was, the one in question was already dead and the one pulling the strings wasn't yet found. He couldn't just make up some proof out of thin air, right? But, when Tang Fan heard Wang Zhi mention Jingtai, he got genuinely scared that the man would randomly fabricate some testimonies and physical evidence so that Consort Wan wouldn't look into him. Wang Zhi really wasn't a vile, treacherous person, else he wouldn't have listened to Tang Fan's proposal, nor would he be willing to forge a good relationship with the prince, nor help to cover up Yuan Liang's motives. That didn't at all indicate that he was a good person that wholeheartedly thought of others. As the director of the Western Depot, his every action was out of thought for his own future political career. The amount of major figures he had felled beneath his hands was known to be numerous. Also, he had been planning to silence Furu, only for her to beat him to the punch. Furu is dead, and the deceased give no testimony, Tang Fan said. This matter should be kept between us, though her uncle's family can be kept in mind. Meaning that since the evidence was destroyed, this matter could simply be turned over, but it wasn't too late for them to make progress towards confirmation in the future. All right, Wang Ji said impatiently. Don't always be using your civil official set of standards to try and read me. I do things differently than you. There's no need for you to lecture me. Nothing good has come ever since I bumped into you. If it weren't for the consort's confidence in me, it would have been really hard for me to get through this. Master Tang quietly listened to his nagging, thinking to himself, you're the one that sought me out in the first place, but now you're saying that I'm the bad omen. A short moment later, Wang Ji noticed that Tang Fan wasn't answering, and felt a bit bored. His Highness asked me to pass on a message to you, he then said. Tang Fan was startled. I'd like to hear it. People pursue springs orchids and jeer at falls chrysanthemums, but the heavens taught the bright moon to accompany the evening star. He suddenly smiled. Wang Ji was suspicious. What riddles are you two spouting? The last time Tang Fan and the prince had met, the former worried that Yuan Liang's death would leave a psychological effect on the latter, and also that the heir apparent that had so many people who had placed high hopes on, would go down a wrong path out of resentment over this. That was why he had found an excuse to bring up a few anecdotes from the ancients, hoping to tell the prince not to lose heart. Even though the world had a lot of injustice and darkness in it, there were even more people that held goodness in their hearts, doing all they could to guide the realm onto the right track. He wanted the prince to not think that everything in the world was unfair because of what had happened with Yuan Liang, nor that he would need to resort to unscrupulous means to achieve his goals. It was only because villains like to gather into group, retaliate against people, and take advantage of others while nobles remain strictly upright, refusing to behave as the villains did, that it seemed like villains outnumbered nobles. The crowned prince had been broken-hearted over Yuan Liang's death, so he had not given him much of a response. As Tang Fan wasn't his teacher, he didn't have the qualifications to instruct him, so he could only take that one opportunity to do what was within his negligible power. Surprisingly, the prince had remembered. People pursue springs orchids was a verse by Sudongpo. Was that not the prince declaring his aspirations with poetry, an answer to Tang Fan's advice from that day? The most wondrous thing about it was that the honest gentleness and broad aspirations contained in the second half of the verse happened to be a perfect clarification of the first half. It wasn't a reply where his heart was filled with impassioned discontent, nor a perfunctory affectation towards Tang Fan. In all likelihood, the young prince had not deliberated on this answer too much. How disappointed so many people were towards the current mediocre, good-for-nothing court. How great the expectations they had placed on the future emperor. There was no way for Tang Fan to describe the consolation he had within himself when he heard this response. In that instant, he felt that running the risk of offending the consort by helping Wang Ji cover up Yuan Liang, thus preventing the crowned prince from getting implicated, was entirely worth it. Average people filled with hatred were not afraid to go down a warped path, ending up like Han Hui at most. But if a sovereign were to have that hatred, every living thing in the land would be out of luck. In contrast, a sovereign that was eternally charitable in mind and magnanimous in heart would be a blessing to the great Ming, and to the world. Tang Fan was not someone with a sullen personality nor one to complain, but that didn't mean that he liked watching people die. Every time a case was concluded, the real killer getting caught was gratifying enough, but it was impossible to reverse the death of the decedent. This time, he sighed for Han Zhao's tragic death, yet also finally felt a trace of solace. He explained the significance of the prince's verse to Wang Ji. Having an heir apparent like this is a real boon to the country, he exclaimed. Wang Zhi expressed no opinion. He was a eunuch, so he had a completely different angle of consideration compared to Tang Fan's. In his view, the crowned prince's succession was still a faraway matter and he needed to do some more important things right now, like put other contributions into order to offset this case with haste. If he didn't, then even if the emperor and consort didn't assign blame to him for winding this up poorly, Shang Ming would use it to press his head down, which would be hard for him to tolerate. There's been a lot of trouble in Jiangnan these days, he said to Tang Fan. North of the desert is also in considerable unrest. In your opinion, do you think I should head south or north? The East Palace case was now reported as closed. With these two's current not really friends but not quite enemies relationship, as long as there was no major conflict of interest between them, there would be no contention between them. Wang Zhi asking Tang Fan for ideas was thus not surprising to him because when all was said and done, this signified that the other was assured of his skill and insight. Besides, Wang Zhi innately differed from other eunuchs. Ordinary men mainly have only two types of pursuits, waking up holding worldwide power and having beauties kneeling by them. The second pursuit was of no use to eunuchs, so, ever since the dawn of time, many of them preferred to go for power, their pursuit being the thrill of a high position. However, their monopoly of power was typically only inside the palace, such as in the great Ming's 12 supervisories. Between the supervisory of ceremony management and supervisory of royal steeds, one had the power to act on the emperor's behalf, specially serving as his ghost riders and as intermediaries between him and major officials, while the other was related to military power. These things were what eunuchs coveted the most, busting their own heads open to squeeze into the two divisions. In each division, these two were of particular importance, the wielder of the seal and the brush holder. Currently, the wielder of the seal eunuch of the supervisory of ceremony management was Huai, while Liang Feng oversaw the supervisory of royal steeds. Shang Ming and Wang Zhi were directors of the eastern and western depots, respectively, but because their seniority wasn't as high as the other two, they could only be brush holder eunuchs, not wielder of the seal. Shang Ming's main task at present was to expand his eastern depot's influence, simultaneously fighting with Wang Zhi and proactively advancing in the hopes that he could one day take the position of either Huai or Liang Feng. However, Wang Zhi felt that this ambition was too small. He wanted to be something more and he wanted it to be grand. Wouldn't he feel aggrieved nestling in the tiny domain of the palace all day long? Thus, he set his sights upon the vast world outside. When the great Ming's army fought, there was a general convention that an army supervisor envoy from inside the palace was to go with them to serve as the emperor's eyes and ears, lest the generals conspire with each other and play him as a fool. Ever since the Tumu stronghold crisis, the Warais, once an enormous threat to the great Ming, gradually weakened. The power over their prairies was constantly getting divided up and switching rulers. The Central Plains dynasty didn't know the details of this development, but in brief, the Warais were on the verge of extinction. Another tribe called the Tartars had arisen, but they have internal strife which prevented them from coordinating with each other. They were comprised of different groups that had their own monarchs. However, that didn't at all hinder them from bothering the Ming's border garrisons. After all, they generally stood on different viewpoints, with Ming citizens thinking that the Tartars were barbarians that came to burn, murder and loot all the time, while the Tartars thought that the great Ming was a fat sheep that had to be snatched. On the southern embankment of the Yellow River, and in between the regions of Ningxia and Shaanxi, was a vast expanse called the Great Bend. The water and vegetation there was abundant, and it was rich in natural resources, but it was also easy to attack and hard to defend. If the great Ming wanted to defend this area, a huge amount of resources was required, but the Warais and Tartars could invade it at any time with ease. That was why Zhu Di, the Yongle emperor, had moved the Dongsheng army inwards, effectively forced to relinquish defense of the area. Yet, there came a problem. Without that cushioning zone, the Tartars were able to barge in, occupy the Great Bend and then directly attack strategic towns on the Great Ming's border. Exploiting this pit, they frequently looted said towns. Had this happened during the great ancestors or Yongl's eras, taking care of it would have been easy. His Majesty, dictatorial in his bind to the heavens, could have just waved his hand to send the army up north. The Tartars would have gotten beaten until they went crying for their parents, never daring to come again. But it was now the Chenghua era. The army that had pulled through the Tuma crisis had learned what fear was, and the ranks' morale wasn't as strong as it had been at the country's founding, where it was undefeated in battle. Plus, there were those uninspiring high officials in court. Right. Just as those officials didn't want to work, they couldn't be counted on to have the ambition for attacking the Tartars and wresting back the Great Bend. Apart from that was the south side. It had no sort of border wars right now, but in the affluent area of Jiangnan, bandits ran amok, officials and merchants colluded, and there was no shortage of corruption. Subordinates followed their leaders, so if those leaders did no work, their underlings would casually drift through life as well. Salaries for officials in the Great Ming were famously low, so there was no need to even think about counting on anyone to work as hard as they had at the country's founding. Furthermore, in the southwest over a year ago, the Songpan Mongs had revolted because they couldn't stand the local officials pushing them around. Although it was later suppressed, many of them getting beheaded, the region still remained far from peaceful. People of Wang Zhi's sort thrived in a world in chaos, restless and wishing that another rebellion would happen so that they could get merits once it passed. Wang Zhi wanted said credits. Disdaining to vie with Shang Ming over trivial garbage like they were mortal enemies, he looked towards these two areas. Through Pan Bin's mouth, Tang Fan had previously suggested military merit, East Palace to him, making him turn his eyes outward and develop a good relationship with the crowned prince in passing. That was because he had seen through to Wang Zhi's restless nature. Now that he had been questioned, Tang Fan wouldn't keep Wang Zhi in suspense. The north. How come? There's no major disorder in the south right now. If no big case shows up regarding the corrupt officials, the court won't place too much importance on it. Even if you, a chief eunuch, arrest a few to establish your might and punish them to set an example, His Majesty won't think that you've made much of a contribution. What Tang Fan didn't mention was that a powerful eunuch like Wang Zhi going there would be a huge mess. Every person of note in the area would scramble to curry favor with him. He should just devastate some foreigners instead. If he could bring in more land for the Great Ming, that would be even better. Wang Zhi loosened up some. Right, I thought so too. If you want to play, then you have to play hard. If I'm only going to catch a bunch of shrimp, I may as well just not. Nowadays, the Tartars are frequently causing disturbances, so if I can recover the Great Bend, that would definitely be a shiny merit for me. Recovering it won't be one day's work, so please think this over carefully, Eunuch Wang, Tang Fan quickly replied. If you can teach the Tartars a bit of a lesson and make them afraid to attack the borders rashly, it would be a great contribution to our Great Ming. Wang Zhi got impatient with his nagging. All right, you're not a general. You know hardly anything about this stuff, so there's no need to say more. Then why the heck did you ask me? Were you just looking for a sense of approval? I'll go present a memorial on an auspicious day to request it. Tang Fan couldn't help himself. How about we make a bet? His cheap mouth blurted. On what? On your request definitely not getting approved. Wang Zhi couldn't believe him. That group in the court is cowardly and afraid to send troops, but I can speak in His Majesty's presence. If I ask for soldiers myself, he should agree to it. Tang Fan was unbothered. Then place the bet. Since he was younger than him, Wang Zhi's competitiveness was roused. All right. What's the wager? If I win, you'll treat me to a meal at Xianyuan restaurant. That crab roe tofu soup from last time was delicious. Can't you just go there yourself? Why the need for a bet? My salary isn't enough for it, Tang Fan answered innocently. Wang Zhi thought to himself, this man is a bona fide glutton. End chapter.